Flex your business with an American Express Business Gold Card. You'll earn 4 times membership rewards points on your top 2 eligible spending categories, like transit and electronics, each month, on up to $150K in combined purchases per year. Plus, you can now earn 3 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Terms and points cap apply. Learn more at AmericanExpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold, built for business by American Express.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
This is the Big 4-0.
40
ounce. I'm still Helen.
And I'm still Kobe. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Cowspiracy, as chosen by Mark Leruste from the Unconventionalists podcast. And also, we're going to be joined by Samantha from Conversations with Samantha and.
Like what you hear? Don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes. You can find us on Twitter at FlixWatcherPod and visit the website Flixwatcher.tv for full listings about this particular show. Warning, there will be spoilers, there will be bad language. As always, the films that we're reviewing were available to stream at the time of recording. This episode of Flixwatcher Pod is brought to you by GL Productions. GL Production provide hassle-free professional quality podcast production at an affordable price. So if you're looking to get into podcasting but fancy a little bit of professionalism to help you out, then we highly recommend GL Productions. If you fancy 10% off your bespoke podcast production package, tell them Kobe and Helen sent you for your first order. Hello and welcome, and in this edition of Flixwatcher Pod, we are joined by Mark and Samantha. If you'd like to say hello, guys, introduce yourselves.
Hi, everyone. My name's Mark Leruste, and I'm the host of the Unconventionalists podcast, a show where we talk about what it's really like to start up a company and try and get people excited about what you do. And
Yeah. And who do you have opposite you?
I have the absolute gorgeous Samantha Clarke.
Thank you, Mark. I am Samantha Clarke, and I'm the host of Conversations with Samantha and, which is a podcast about the impact of technology on our happiness in our lives, where we live, and how we work. It's interviews with people who are communication experts, city designers, really getting to the heart of how technology is impacting how we live and show up.
Fantastic interview. And we will link to your podcasts and Twitters and everything, internet aspects on the show notes. But today we're here to talk with yourself, Mark, about your choice, which is Cowspiracy.
Cowspiracy.
Why did you choose it? And can you give us a brief synopsis?
Okay.
I'm not being accusative.
There needs to be a bit of background. So I'm not vegan. Just putting it out there. And the reason why I chose this documentary is that I remember when I saw it when it originally came out, and it really threw me off because I went through a phase of exploring plant-based diet and trying to understand from the health perspective, because I worked for the Movember Foundation for 4 years as country manager. And so I used to interact with a lot of patients who'd survived cancer, who were going through cancer. I talked to a lot of doctors, and there seemed to be a resounding piece of advice for most people who've been through cancer, which was basically try and stay off red meat and try and eat way more vegetables and, fish. And I thought, this is really weird. If they're telling post-cancer patients to eat this kind of diet, why are we not doing it before?
Pre-cancer,
yeah. And so it got me thinking. And so for me, it wasn't at all from a well-being or a conscious level. I really explored that from a health perspective. And so I went through like this militant series of documentaries like Earthlings and Forks Over Knives and like all these documentaries on plant-based diets and veganism, all this stuff. And they were all like really shocking and horrible stuff. But Cowspiracy, I came across it and it made sense. It was the first one that was like, forget about your feelings. Forget about how you feel about animals getting killed and eating bacon or not. From an economic stand, it just stacked up.
Yeah.
And that's why I thought it was an interesting documentary. And also because I interview people on quests on my show, I thought that this was an incredible quest for Kip, right? The director, yeah.
And so what happens Can you give a brief synopsis of Kip's story?
Yeah, so the short version is basically Kip considered himself a OCE, which is an obsessive compulsive environmentalist. And after seeing The Inconvenient Truth from
Al Gore,
he basically decides to become an environmentalist and recycle. But he came across this frightening statistics that basically said that livestock raises more greenhouse gas emission than all the transport combined. So that's train, planes, cars, boats, etc. And as he went into the charity worlds and started looking at Greenpeace and all these kind of, foundations, none of them mentioned agro-farming whatsoever. And so that takes him down this rabbit hole of exploring through his documentary that actually everyone's afraid to talk about the impact of agro-farming. And it's an interesting debate around, should we eat meat?
Yeah. Samantha.
My thoughts on the film?
Yes.
So,
are you a vegan? Or do you eat more carefully?
I am definitely, so I eat mainly plant-based, but I still eat fish. And I think when I first started watching this, I kind of thought, okay, because I do a lot of research around some different types of plant-based diets and veganism and vegetarians. And it didn't grab me from the get-go, mainly because I thought, okay, I know all of this. There is always an economical kind of perspective around it. The reason they're not talking about it is because there's profiteering in another area. It's the same formula, but I guess it's interesting to kind of see it shown out in this film and his different quest to try and speak to even, Greenpeace, continuously knocking on their door for confirmation or just some understanding, and their reluctance to kind of show up. And even I think he went to the Agricultural Association, and the lady, he asked her, are you connected with Greenpeace, or do you
fund them?
Yeah, do you fund them? And she was like, I don't know if we should answer this. And I just thought, okay. Yeah. Yes, it's a complex, food is always a complex economical issue.
Yeah.
There are documentaries like this help us to fuel conversations and to think about it, but he did hone in on the point that all of these things that he was doing as a compulsive, excessive environmentalist, he wasn't really making any change. He was trying to cut down on his showers and trying to do all these things.
Recycling more.
Yeah, recycling more. And then it made me feel a little bit defeatist as, yes, okay, fair enough. I am trying to eat less meat and do all of these things, but I'm affecting, I'm making a small amount of change. So that it did play on my mind, what else could I be doing to move this further? And then I'm not really a vegan, so how much can I contribute into this conversation?
And also, it's quite, I think, a fair point to notice that it's not just talking about cows, although the beef and dairy farming was the main part of it, but they do talk about sustainability in fishing, which seemed horrific with the amount of by-kill. They're just happy to, we'll kill a few whales.
There was that whole conversation with the guy said it's like interest, at the end of the day, you just keep going, you got to keep fishing, and it makes more fish in the long run. And I just thought, oh my God.
And he just kills it.
Yeah.
It just comes out,
I just thought that, so yes, I think it's an interesting movie to watch. I think maybe I probably came at it slightly thinking, I know all of this. And I have friends who are very militant vegans.
Right. So what's their reason for militancy in the veganism? Because I before watching this documentary, I thought most people's, and I knew about this kind of aspect of environmental impacts on beef farming and things like that. But most people I know who are vegans come at it from the point of view which Mark, you're talking about with the films where they're talking about slaughtering animals.
So I think that actually, I truly believe that actually the one of the biggest issues with the vegan movement is that it's, and I know a lot of, so my friends vegans, is that they tend to be almost, so militant's the word that comes up, but it's almost guilt tripping. And so what I've realized, if anything, again, for the Movember Foundation, when you want to talk about something as dark and deep as death and cancer, if you make it dark and deep, and men don't want to engage with it, but if you try and find a fun way to talk about a serious issue, then you can get men to engage. And I think that's what I find is missing in the veganism movement, is like, how can we make it relatable for other people? But what happens when you speak to people in vegan is like, we don't have a choice. It's like we've got to act with fire. Cows can't defend themselves, bees can't defend themselves. Chickens and so forth. No, but and so for them, it's super personal, and you cannot try and rationalize with someone who emotionally gets so attached to the idea that we are killing, 70 billion livestock a year. It was something ridiculous. So you can understand how someone who looks at that and sees this is wrong, gets really emotional about it. And the problem is that
And it's
it alienates
alienating,
people. Yeah, I think so.
Helen.
I mean, it is really interesting. And I'd say with it being a few years old, I think it's 2014, a lot of the information in there wasn't a surprise to me. And, have an interest is I'm not vegan either. I was vegetarian for a short while, but I don't really eat that much meat anyway, but I do when I do like fish. But I think the problem with going vegan is that it has to be a choice, and you only have to look at obesity in America and the popularity of fast food and burgers in America, that they are not going to suddenly choose to not eat meat. And it's also linked in with, obviously, the problem that we have with supermarket waste is that we've become so accustomed to demanding to have meat every day for every meal there when we want it for a cheap price, that has accelerated farming and accelerated the need. And there's so much money involved in it now. There's so much more at stake that for someone to go out and go, right, we're going to phase out all agricultural farming. What's the answer going to be to that? There's going to be so many people in very powerful places that are going to go, well, no. And it's obvious what's going to happen. We're going to run out of land to farm. We're going to run out of land to grow feed.
Yeah. I mean, that for me is the most crazy thing. It's like, I don't care if you're a vegan, a herbivore, an omnivore. I don't care if you're paleo. I don't know what you do. You look at the statistics, with 7 billion people on this planet, right? And it's like, we're rising to 9 billion, right? That's like the projection in the next 20 to 30 years. There's no way in hell we can feed that amount of people. And when you look at the stats, they were saying that 50% of grains and legumes go straight to feed livestock.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, and there was a point that said, if you just took those grains and legumes and turned them into food for humans, we would eradicate hunger.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's crazy, yeah.
And you just go, what?
Yeah.
It's like, what? And then you've got the Patriots Act.
It's so simple.
Oh.
It's so simple, though.
Yeah.
But
there's no money in simple.
No, exactly.
There's no money.
But it's like, yes, what you're saying is the who's feeding who's feeding who. And I've got a few points on this documentary which I'd like to touch upon, but I was disappointed because when you typically look at documentaries like this, it's people like Michael Moore or Morgan Spurlock, knocking on the door of the big establishment saying like Walmart or why do you sell guns to people? But this guy, not that engaged in the character.
He's a bit of a dude.
Yeah. And he's trying to just speak to Greenpeace. And you think Greenpeace are the people who would want to open the doors up and say, yeah, come in, have a chat. But they were completely the opposite. And that was kind of disheartening. I don't know if that's their policy nowadays. Maybe they were just kind of wrong-footed by him. But that shows that these big charities are.
This is a crowd-funded film. So, they didn't have any backing other than, obviously,
Well, he lost his
Leo.
backing,
He lost
didn't
his
he?
backing.
Yeah. Leo, the Crusader, Leo, has got his name to it. But
Oh, Leo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
had
he
it had
came
some
later,
major
though.
funding or a studio behind it to give it that kind of push, or to make it a little bit more in your face, then it's probably what it needs to be.
But do you think so? That's interesting because I can 100% see what you're saying. But do you think had it been too much push in your face, it would have been another an angry vegan, like an angry activist, an angry. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like
no, because his points for doing it aren't the. He barely even touches on like the slaughter. He doesn't really go down that angle. Yeah. I just think that, and he doesn't. He basically, his point of the thing is that these are all these facts out there, and all the major people who are giving out advice and meant to be protecting our oceans and looking out for climate change are either ignoring it or not admitting it. And that's kind of his narrative for the whole movie. And once he finds out that's the case, it just goes over and over again and over and over again. And, there's some facts in there, but, it kind of stops and loses a little bit of momentum. It doesn't really delve into what we can be doing or what the next steps are, or it doesn't even over dramatize it and go, this is what's going to happen, rah, and, be really shocking and really blunt and, bit of scaremongering in there to give it that impact it may need.
Do you think that might be down to Kip himself, though, or as a crowdfund, maybe it's a crowdfunded film with.
You guys are hating on campus.
No, but I think it's fundamental. If you're going to go out there and, this is the problem, this is what I've unearthed, what next? I mean, there was that whole segue into the future of food and this is what people are doing, but it's still...
the Beyond Meat and those eggs and that stuff, yeah.
And even that still feels, again, quite political and economical. Like the people who are involved in either genetically modifying food or thinking about it. It still left me thinking, okay, and
it was very, very, very American based as well, because we have the problem in the UK where obviously
and also
meat is cheaper sometimes than vegetables, and we've got massive poverty issues and people not being able to feed themselves, and vegetables aren't particularly cheap if you're trying to feed children. So
and I think that's a really salient point, in that it's often easier to feed kids crisps and the cheap and nasty foods than it is to feed them vegetables.
Sure.
And that's
also soya alternatives, they're not as cheap as regular milk and things like that. So it does come across from a very affluent white sort of voice, which it needs to be looking at from everyone. And something from the point of China's point of view, their consumption of food in general and meat, and historically their cuisine is pretty meaty. So how are we going to change that?
China.
But actually, so that's interesting. There's a book by Professor Campbell called The China Study, which is all around based on 20 to 30 years of research around China and Asia with the influence of Western diets hitting China, especially meat. So meat wasn't a predominant dish in every single dish that they ate during the days and so forth. And then dairy came, consumption of meat came, and suddenly they saw a rise in diseases and cancers, and that spiraled off in a whole different study around the impact that animal-based protein has on the influence of impacting our cancer genomes and so forth. But it's the fact that we're not going to sustain the way that we are. So crickets are the answer, ladies and gentlemen.
Eat crickets.
I've had crickets, they're fine.
I'm serious. Insect is going to be the food of the future.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah. There's that. I think one of the funniest parts of the conversation was what the film was. He was talking to that guy who's saying milk is
growth. Yeah, it's growth juice.
Growth juice for carbs. And
I've seen a video where they go round and get people to try milk, and it's dog's milk.
Right.
And they basically get people to try it. We've got a new brand of milk. Do you want to try it? And they say it's dog's milk, and they're like, "This is disgusting. How can you make me do that?" And it's like, well, that's what you're doing each time you drink cow's milk. Yeah. It's the same thing. And people have a completely different reaction to it. But the dairy farm industry is pretty shocking anyway. It's not a secret about it. Unfortunately, but it's a massive industry. And again, it's something that it's not going to change overnight. I mean, soya, there are so many different alternatives and more people are doing that. But again, there's a lot of people who will not do that because either they don't like the taste or they just think it's silly.
Well, if we all change now, then if you start feeding this kind of things to your kids, if you gave a 1-year-old crickets and they didn't know that wasn't what people normally did, they'd just be like, okay, we're going to eat crickets.
But I think that there's like 80% of the world eats crickets, like insects. Right. It's something ridiculous. It's like we're here for some reason make up that it's. So I brought back some dried, crispy kind of crickets at home, and my girlfriend just freaked out and she wouldn't have them in the flat. But I was like, this is happening. It's coming our way, whether people want it or not. It's like it's the most sustainable way to grow protein. It's like 80% protein crickets. It's something ridiculous. And it's got also a whole bunch of vitamins and that kind of stuff. So yeah, and the other thing I want to talk about quickly about the milk. It was like this documentary also made me realize I never understood why vegetarians hated on vegans so much. I didn't understand what, like, every time I'd see a vegan and a vegetarian, vegans were like, why are you vegetarian? Like, you could just, you're basically just as cruel as a meat eater. And I thought, come on, that's a bit harsh. Like, at least they're doing their part. But watching this documentary made me realize that, oh, okay. So milk cows get their calves, and this is organic farm, by the way, in the documentary. It's like they get the calves taken off to 2 days, then they get pumped for as long as they can, and then when they stop producing, they get sold for slaughter.
Get put into a truck and then carted off.
Yeah. So then I thought, okay, that's why vegans are like, you're drinking milk, but you're basically contributing to the whole ecosystem of meat eating. Yeah.
I mean, I've stopped. I'm quite a heavy meat eater.
Yeah.
But I've stopped drinking milk for a few.
But do you still eat cheese?
Not much at all. It will be as a buy thing on pizza if there's pizza about, but I rarely would buy it.
Mm.
But I think the point that the guy was making in terms of the hormones, the antibodies, and things like that, that were in cow's milk is.
It's so gross. It's like apparently in a pint of milk in the conventional shops, there's about 1,000 different cows' milk in one bottle.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And then you just made a face.
I think that's the first step. I mean, I don't drink milk
Yeah,
either.
same.
I've not drank it for a while, I think that's the easiest thing for people to make the little steps.
It's true though, and I think to the point about the biggest problem I find with these documentaries sometimes, the Unconvenient Truth. I remember specifically being at the cinema, watching it, and at the end going, "Can we swear on this podcast?" Or not? Yeah. I thought about, we're fucked. And now what? And it's like credits. It's kind of like, we're all going to screw, the ocean's going to take over the cities, and good luck. And then it just stops. And I remember going, oh my God, it's like we're all going to die. And there's nothing, no tips. And I think that's, like, how can you take someone who's a massive meat eater, who doesn't believe in the conscious ethical aspect of not killing animals, but to go, dude, if you don't start drinking like coconut milk or almond milk,
and
we're going to run out of
soy, it's, how do you say someone who has meat every day, or the food industry in London is so meaty. If you go out to any kind of street food place, like, there is a lot of meat still.
But I'll tell you this. I mean, if you were vegetarian at some point, Sam, you're kind of
pescatarian.
You're flexitarian.
No, I'm a pescatarian. But no.
But I'll tell you this: when I went to this vegetarian, vegan kind of journey, when I walked in supermarkets, the aisles of meat no longer looked like food, but like morgues. It was the most weird thing.
Really?
It was the most weird thing.
Feeling.
I never imagined that. I mean, I can walk across it now, but you don't see it anymore as like, oh, a tasty chicken stir fry. You see it as like, that was a living thing. And that's like flesh. It's like if someone took half my flesh and just put it in a pack and into the fridge, and it's weird. You start thinking that. It's like, it's just like, it's bizarre.
Yeah.
I think that's the main problem in the UK and I guess a lot of the Western world, quote unquote, is that disassociation between where the food comes from.
Yeah.
And when I was born in Nigeria, came to England when I was 2, but I remember when we went back a few times, I used to see my grandmother like chop head off a chicken and she'd be like plucking it. I was like, okay, that's where meat comes from. But people don't know that. And I think that's where you get a lot of vegans. And I think there's a TV show on Channel 4 a fair few years ago called Catch It, Cook It. No, Kill It, Cook It, Eat It. And I thought it was really interesting seeing people who had to kill their own food and then cook it, then eat it themselves. A lot of people from that series suddenly gave up.
But I think you would though. There's just 3 things I want to share. One is, I think it was a quote by John Lennon or Einstein, I never know, that said that if all slaughterhouses were made of glass, everyone would be vegetarian. The second one is, I've just fucking forgot my thought. I had this amazing, no, exactly what you said about Mark Zuckerberg went through a phase where he said for a year he would only eat what he hunts. So only meat or stuff like chickens that he killed or whatever that you would do. And the third one is Neil Strauss, the guy who wrote the book The Game, but also The Truth, wrote a book called Survival, I think. And he talks about how he realized that you can't even change a lamp bulb. And so goes on this mission.
He couldn't.
No, he goes on this mission to try and figure out how do you survive in the wild, all this stuff. And he has an exercise where he has to kill a goat and he can't go through it. And he's trying to kill this goat and he's like, I can't do it. It's horrible. And I honestly think I could not kill a cow. If I was in front of a cow and I was like, okay, you can have a burger, but you've got to kill that cow, I'd be like, fuck that. I'll have the grass. I will not survive in the wild, ladies and gentlemen.
Helen, what's that you're holding there?
I've got a box of popcorn sheds.
Yeah,
popcorn.
But it looks like a shed.
It does. It's got a cute little window as well. So it looks like there's popcorn in the shed.
Like off of Play School?
Yeah, or a little beach hut or something. It's really cute.
Like a chalet on Brighton Beach.
Full of popcorn.
Full of popcorn. What flavour is that popcorn?
Rich chocolate.
Ooh, tasty. And I really want to have this with a bowl of milk because it tastes awesome, but I think it'll taste awesomer with milk. But try it dry because it's got a lot of crunch, hasn't it?
And why not get some popcorn shed popcorn in for your Netflix viewing this weekend? It's delicious.
Netflix and corn.
Popcorn.
Popcorn shed popcorn. That's the way to do it. How can people find Popcorn Shed?
You can find them in a shop that sells popcorn.
Yeah, some cinemas sell it. Some
do.
picture houses sell Popcorn Shed, but also online at popcornshed.com. Well, simple.
Or follow them on Instagram as well. Have a look at them online. They are across all the socials and they are popcorn popped right here in London.
Yeah. They've got some really cool Instagrammy feeds, haven't they?
Yes, definitely follow them. They're awesome.
Follow them on the social medias. And now, guys, after the popcorn session, we go to the scores for Cowspiracy.
So a quick roundup on this one.
So, yes, Samantha's tight for time, so we're going to go through this a bit quicker than we normally would do, guys, but...
Imagine what's possible when learning doesn't get in the way of life. At Capella University, our game-changing FlexPath learning format lets you set your own deadlines so you can learn at a time and pace that works for you. It's an education you can tailor to your schedule. That means you don't have to put your life on hold to pursue your professional goals. Instead, enjoy learning your way and earn your degree without missing a beat. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
Cowspiracy, Mark, you brought it to us. Recommendability score.
Yeah, I'm going to go 4.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's...
When you came in here, your head was a bit dejected that you'd
Yeah,
chosen this.
I did because I thought, I was like, why did I pick that? That's so bizarre. But I think, after speaking about it, everybody was like, yeah, 4. I think it's important that people should watch it and then be conscious when you eat, but at least you know what you're doing.
Yeah. Samantha?
Yeah, I'm going to go with 4 as well. I think it's a good conversation starter, but it's thinking about where you go from there onwards.
Which didn't really help.
No.
Helen?
Yep. A 4 again. It's, the discussion is there, but it lacks the punch.
Chutzpah.
Yeah.
I'm going to go 4 as well. Mark said we were hating on Kip. I just didn't find him engaging. And I think
He's no over.
for a podcast, for a documentary like this, it needs to have someone that's a bit more enigmatic. And if it had been in someone else's hands, I think it would have been.
I think that the movement is still looking for their Jamie Oliver. They're looking for that woman or guy who's going to make it cool.
Yeah.
The revolution.
Repeat viewing score. Mark?
Because how many times have you seen it now?
That's the second one. Oh,
Would you watch it again?
2.5.
And under what situation would you watch it again?
My girlfriend. Yeah, if I wanted to, because she's in denial. She doesn't want to see it. I've asked her a couple. She doesn't want to see it. So if she'd be like, okay, I'll watch it, and I'll be like, okay, I'll sit down with you, sweetie.
Yeah. Samantha?
Yeah, 1.5. So
not likely at all. Helen?
I'm gonna go 2. I mean, I don't think it's gonna offer anything new, but likewise, if my boyfriend was gonna pay attention this time.
Did you watch it with him? And he was like,
he kind
daring.
of was sort of side watching it.
Right.
He does enjoy me a lot more than I do.
Just on that note, I have a problem watching these kind of documentaries. They make me want to eat meat, and so I had a burger last night after watching it. Yes, I feel really bad saying this, but it's true. And I wonder if there's a
correlation. Like all the McDonald's around the cinema just got a spike after. Yeah, I'm a bit hungry now. Let's get a Big Mac. I'm going to say 2. I think I agree with you guys. I'm a bigger meat eater than my wife, but it does make me want to reevaluate how we eat. I know a lot of people are vegetarian and vegan, and I'm happy already that I'm not drinking dairy so much. So I think making a step to having less meat would be quite a good one, actually.
Go for meat-free Mondays.
Well, I think it needs to be more than that, or just, I mean,
we
do a lot of cooking in a slow cooker, so maybe just like halving the amount of meat in that spread across the, and that instantly halves the amount of meat we eat in the year. Just put more sweet potato in there. And the thing with documentaries actually is that it has to be an amazing documentary to want to watch it again, and I don't think it was one. I love documentaries to bits, and I could sit for a whole weekend and watch back to back and just feel like I'm learning stuff. But to re-watch a documentary has to be of an ilk, which I don't know what that is.
Senna.
Oh, that's Asif Kapady's documentaries. So he did Senna and did Amy, and he's doing Maradona at the moment.
Yeah,
and
looking forward to that.
He's an excellent filmmaker. I would watch Senna again, definitely. And I would watch Amy. I used to love Amy Winehouse.
Yeah.
Just quickly on that note, if you're a guy and you're listening to this, watch a guy called Rip Esselstein's TEDx talk. I think it's called Plant Strong and Healthy Living. It's the one I watched many years ago. and he talks about erectile dysfunction linked to meat eating. Listen to that as a guy and tell me you're not interested in finding out more about why meat is impacting your health.
Yeah.
No.
That's one of my friends who is kind of a vegan kind of stalwart, and his Instagram is called Shaka Bars, and he always goes to that. That's his default kind of game changer for men. Do you want erectile dysfunction?
So that's almost like this on the cigarettes, isn't it? Where it has like smoking might make you impotent, so it should be on the cow
Packs of
packaging.
chicken.
Yeah.
That, or he says parasites. It's those two, because it's like the meat from parasites will kill you.
Parasites from meat.
Yeah, but you have people, and I would off topic it, but we're living in a world where you smoke cigarette packets with literally dead people on them, or like lungs, or holes in throats.
Yeah.
And but there's no way we're going to get this passed, Anyway.
Well, consider what smoking was like even 20 years ago.
Yeah, in planes.
So,
I remember as a kid
going
on planes and people smoking at the back. My dad going in the back and getting a cheeky cigarette.
Yeah. So, why not 20 years time and having warnings on packs of steak?
Yeah.
Small screen score. Mark.
4.
Yeah.
Thought it was fine. I could pause it. I watched it in a couple of bases. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd go with 4 too.
Yeah. Helen.
4.
Yeah, not worth watching in a cinema at all.
No.
Although, considering it's by himself, I thought some of the images he put on there of the interviews, looked really quite well framed.
The infographics were really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
Although I thought I was quite annoyed at the inconsistency of the infographics. It seemed like there's one friend did one set, one friend did another set, and I could have thought
what budget would allow, really.
Yeah, I guess it's crowdfunded and stuff like that.
I did not know it was crowdfunded.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Good for them.
Engagement score. Mark.
I thought it's the second time I've seen it. So I watched it while I was cooking.
Meat.
The burger.
What was I cooking? I forgot what was I cooking. Yeah, no, but I was cooking. No, I was doing brunch, and it was vegetarian actually. It was a vegetarian. Vegetarian brunch. No, it's true. No smoked salmon. It was a pescatarian brunch. Okay, 3 because I was running. I remember every time I'd go and run and see who was speaking and stuff. So 3.
Yeah, maybe 2.5 for me.
Yeah, you didn't seem that interested in watching when it came out, when it was suggested.
I think maybe because I'm overloaded with this information in various chat groups and whatever. I'm just kind of, and some again, kind of. I think there were bits that you could hone in on and you could watch and then step away, and I'd still feel like I hadn't missed anything.
Yeah.
I'm going to go 3. I was watching it, but also I did kind of get sucked up in a bit of a internet searching, sort of checking out a little bit deeper and finding out a little bit more, and then kind of ended up on somewhere else, and then I need to pay attention to 3.
I think I'm a 2.5. I think I fell asleep the first time watching it.
It's done nothing to
knackered.
Wean you away from meat.
No, I am reconsidering how much meat I eat and of what sources.
Watch the Rip's TEDx talk, and you'll come back to me and you'll be like, okay, I'm cutting that shit out.
Plus, from a kind of sporting point of view, I know a few people who are vegetarians and who are really generally healthy people, and they smash it out in the park and the bikes and running and stuff like that. So
I can't remember the name of the footballer. A recent footballer is just kind of converted to
it's like coming out.
Well, he's sort of he's changed his diet. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's one of the Premier League clubs, and he's sort of, I'm not eating meat now. I'm veggie, and I feel so much more energized.
You recover faster. Basically, your recovery time of meat is faster. So the one thing that most people don't know about me is that I hold a plant-based nutrition certificate from Cornell University. It's the most random thing about me that no one knows. But I was fascinated.
Now everyone's going to know because everyone's
But I was fascinated about the science behind it. So for me, it was to understand what the whole thing about, you can't live without meat. Well, it's BS.
So that gives an overall score of 3.2, which is higher than I thought it would have been based on conversations before coming to the pod booth.
That's true.
But I think
I was having a meltdown of the choice.
Yeah.
I was making everybody to watch another documentary, 2-hour documentary, 12 hours before the show.
I was like, don't have the time.
Yeah. Like, that's
Sorry,
not happening.
Mark.
It's started already.
Sorry about that, guys.
But no, it is really interesting. If you're listening to this and you watch it, then that's one more person who is kind of engaged in something. And if you then decide to make the change, then that's kind of how things start.
And I think this has let itself down on repeat viewing score. As we said, it's something that's probably true of most documentaries. It's the low repeat viewing score. So otherwise it would have been quite high overall. So I think it is a general high recommendation.
But we can't, again, look at our scores. They're quite similar.
Yeah. 3.5, 3.375. Guys, Mark, sign off. Where are you from? How can we find you?
Yeah, so founder and host of The Unconventionalists, and it's a podcast I invite everybody to check out. You can find us at theunconventionalists.com or markleruste.com, and you spell Leruste Leruste. And yeah, we just get a bunch of really amazing and exciting guests on, and
chat about their lives.
Yeah, I'm the worst self-promoting person when it comes to my podcast. But anyway, yeah, check it out.
Samantha.
Cool. So I'm Samantha Clarke, and I have a podcast called Conversations with Samantha Rand. It's really inspirational interviews with city planners, psychologists, communication experts, really looking at the impact of technology on our happiness and how we live and how we show up in the world. You can check out my website, which is samanthaand.co. Not .co.uk, just .co. And that's where you'll find everything around happiness, emotional intelligence, technology, and change.
Nice.
Awesome. Cheers.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. It was great to have Mark and Samantha again back on the show for the start of the year. And as this goes out, it's January, so a lot of people will be doing Veganuary. I'm not sure how you're supposed to say that. But let us know if films like Cowspiracy or even What the Health have inspired you to become a vegan. It'd be good to know if these documentaries have any kind of impact. Thank you very much to our editors as always. Toby is the main guy who helms and carves our voices, and also hellos to Tony, Jay and Greg and everyone else at Geo Productions who we haven't met yet. Of course, please big up Mighty People for the tunes you can hear now, and at the start of the podcast, please don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes, find us on Twitter at FlixWatcherPod, and visit our website, flixwatcher.tv.